Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming in a little early. So since we didn't have the conference last year, Phil asked me if I could do a little bit of a recap of the things that we've added to the platform, the stuff that we're proud to show off today. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Matt Gracie. I'm a senior engineer on the support and pro services team. So if my voice sounds familiar, you've probably been on a call with me at some point. Everything that I show you is stuff that we've added to the platform in the last couple of years. My demo is going to be pre-recorded, but with that said, if you want to get hands-on experience with any of these features, see how they work, kick the tires a little bit, my coworker Bryant is at the demo table up in the lobby, and he can walk you through a scenario that shows off a lot of this stuff. All right, so with that said, let's get started. In tribute to Doug's Back to the Future theme from last year, we're going to go ahead and set the DeLorean to October of 2023. We were all here. It was a lovely time. The Rangers and the Diamondbacks were on their way to the World Series, which is a sentence that still doesn't sound right to me. The Paw Patrol movie was in theaters. I looked that up, as was the Eras Tour. I tried to look up what music was popular, and I didn't recognize any of it, so I'm not going to try to say it. But let's take a look at the State of the Onion talk that Doug gave back in 2023, and we'll see where we've come since then. So I took a couple slides out of his video. First of all, at the last Security Onion conference, we released 2.3.270, right? We actually had a merge party right here, released our new version. That, of course, was also where we announced the end of life for the 2.3 product line. That was supported for another 6 months through April of 2024. Excuse me. Which is when we retired it, right before CentOS 7 was also retired in June of 2024. So 2.3 was brand new when we were here 2 years ago, but we have since end-of-lifed it. Simultaneously, we were releasing 2.4.20. Right, this was the beginning of 2.4. It was really coming out of beta, becoming a real supported product. So this was one of our first big releases. We also released this one at the last Security Onion conference. As it said in the slide, upgraded components, many new features, lots of fixes. We said goodbye to things like Waza and WinLogBeat and the OS Query Agent. We introduced Elastic Agent, a bunch of new interface stuff. So it was a very, very exciting upgrade. We moved from CentOS over to Oracle Linux, changed a lot of the underpinnings of the platform. Very, very cool. But 2.4, again, was brand new at the time, was just kind of finding its footing 2 years ago. And then our one last thing from 2023, playbook and detections. And again, this is a slide that I borrowed from Doug's presentation back then. The plan was for Playbook. You may remember Playbook as the interface for writing Sigma rules in 2.3. Playbook will be rewritten and integrated into SOC. And then we're going to add detections, which is a new interface for unifying all of our detection tuning and writing and application, and sort of more tightly integrating that detection engineering and alerting workflow and detection tuning workflow into the SOC experience. So again, in 2023, that was our goal. That's what we were trying to do. So how did it all work out for us? Well, I have some of the new features that we've added in these next few slides. Detections, we added in 2.4.70. And the detections module allows creating and tuning all the different rule types in the Security Onion console. So Suricata rules, Yara rules, Sigma rules, those are all in one centralized interface where you can enable, disable, tune, modify, write new rules, do all the stuff that you want to do. I feel like it's a really revolutionary feature. Putting all that stuff right into the web GUI, it works really well, people like it. Rules can be added individually. As you know, we include the emerging threats open rule set from our friends at Proofpoint, or if you want to run internal Git repositories or internal web servers hosting your rules, you can do that as well. All of the rules we have AI generated summaries for, so there are plain English summaries of what the rules are and what they do. That was a big jump forward, especially for Suricata rules. Those can be a little bit dense, a little bit hard to read. And then for each of these, I have a fun feature, something that the platform does that even experienced Security Onion users may not be aware of. In the case of detections, there's a fun feature where you can host the Suricata rules that you've tuned with detections to import into non-SO environments. So for example, if you have OpenSense firewalls in your environment, right? You can turn on the Suricata module there, and you can actually export your Suricata rules from Security Onion to those OpenSense firewalls. So if you have a smaller environment where you don't necessarily want to deploy a full Security Onion sensor, but you still want to be able to have governorship over those rules, that's very easy to do. Or in a home environment, you know, it may be more efficient for you if you're already running OpenSense, it's already seeing all your traffic. You can maintain those rules in a Security Onion manager search, use that to collect all the logs. We do have a parsing pipeline for outside Suricata feeds, and then just deploy the rules to OpenSense. So it's kind of a neat little feature that's tucked away there. It's in the docs, but a lot of people haven't noticed it. Another big feature that we released was guided analysis, right? This is sort of the other piece of that playbook slide that Doug had in 2023. Guided analysis is based on the human-centered investigative playbook standard by Chris Sanders. He and Josh will be talking about that later today. Each playbook contains questions and queries to help guide your analysts in their efforts. Make sure you don't skip any steps. Make sure that it provides additional context around an investigation as you're going through it. One of my favorite features is investigative playbooks can be assigned to individual rules, so you can have a rule for investigating a particular type of Suricata alert, or you can have broader categories of playbook. These are all of the queries, all of the things that you should check when you investigate an ET malware alert. These are all the things for an ET info alert, et cetera, right? And then if you have multiple playbooks that apply to a single rule, it will sort of synthesize them all together in the guided analysis interface and walk you through the whole thing. A fun feature here is while we do ship with a lot of playbooks and we're generating more, you can also host your own playbooks on an internal Git repo and SOC will import them. So if you have particular alerting rules that you see firing a lot in your environment, if you have junior analysts that you want to make sure you are sending in the right direction, if you have particular playbooks that you want to put into action, you can do that, just put them on a Git repo, they'll be imported, and then anytime that alert fires, your analyst will get the proper playbook for it. The whole standard for writing these is all free and open, very well documented. Again, Chris and Josh will be talking about that in a little while. One of our biggest changes, last year we released Security Onion Pro, which is a set of licensed enterprise features. I don't have enough room on the slide to list everything. We're adding more pro features all the time. But some of the high points, OIDC authentication for people who want to tie their Security Onion console login to Active Directory or Azure or some other web authentication service. The notification system, which I'll demo in a few minutes, that allows you to send your alerts to outside destinations. You know, some people like to send everything into Jira to automatically open tickets. Some people like to send emails or Slack messages on particularly severe alerts. But this allows you to sort of integrate with the rest of your enterprise alerting stack. FIPS and STIG compliance. This is something that we get requests for fairly often, so we've built this into both the product and also the installer. So if you're spinning up a new grid and it needs to be STIG compliant, we can set up the custom partitioning scheme and the other necessary changes for you. The Connect API, so every feature that is in the web interface is now API addressable. If you want to integrate this with your orchestration platform or with other systems in your enterprise stack, you're able to do that. If you want to pull out things like active alerts, PCAP, Zeek logs, anything that you've got in Security Onion, you can now access via API. Built on top of that API, we've got the manager of managers. So if you're running multiple grids in your environment, you can have one manager with visibility into all of those other grids, right? We see this sometimes in environments where people want to have isolated log repositories for different teams, right? So the security team has access to all the logs, but the firewall team only has access to firewall-related logs. The endpoint team has access to endpoint-related logs. Now we can put a console above all that so that the security team can see into all of those individual repositories without having to set up cross-cluster search and do all the stuff that we had to do in the past. We have an MCP server as part of Pro for integration into your AI platform. And that, of course, is also on top of the API. A couple things that we've released in the last couple of months that are really cool. We have hypervisor nodes. So one of the problems that we see with customers who have very large search nodes is that Elasticsearch will run out of shards before they run out of disk space, right? So you can only have 1,000 shards in an Elasticsearch search node. This way we can virtualize nodes to run multiple Security Onion nodes simultaneously on the same hardware. So if you have something like an SN7200, you've got lots of space available, but you've run out of shards. Instead, you can run multiple virtual search nodes on it. You can even run multiple nodes of other types on it, all built on top of a hypervisor framework. And finally, and this is something else that I'll show in the demo video, we added some reporting functionality in 2.4.180. I know for a lot of people that was the last thing that you were going into Kibana for, exporting CSVs, building reports. So we moved a lot of that functionality into SOC so that we can keep you in there. Another cool thing that we added, and a lot of this was Doug's work, was a process investigation workflow. So in 2.4, we moved to Elastic Agent. Elastic Agent collects all of the same log data that WinLogBeat did, for example, but it also collects endpoint telemetry information. So every time a network connection is opened, every time a DNS query is made, every time a process is created or a file is deleted, all of that telemetry is captured by Elastic Agent and sent up into Security Onion for review. In the Actions menu now, we have a bunch of process investigation shortcuts. So you can see things like the execution history of a process, right? What was the parent process? What was that parent process's process? What registry keys did it alter? What files did it write? So if you're importing endpoint data into Security Onion, this gives you a lot of investigative capability and the ability to pivot very easily between these process records. A fun feature of this one, and this is one of my favorite things in the whole platform, is endpoint network events generate a community ID. You've all been using the platform for a while. You know what a community ID is. It's a hash of the source and destination information about a network flow, right? So endpoint network events, when an endpoint opens a network connection or makes a DNS query, that also generates a community ID, which means you can pivot on that from network information to endpoint information. You can jump in one click from this Suricata alert for this dodgy traffic to the process record on the endpoint that generated the dodgy traffic. It's awesome. It is a really, really cool function. Another thing that we've added in 2.4 that's been very popular is Elastic Integrations. So Elastic Integrations provide pre-configured ingestion pipelines for third-party data. If you're pulling information in from a firewall or from a load balancer or from a cloud service, it all goes into the same ingestion pipeline as the other Security Onion data. It gets normalized, stored in Elastic Common Schema on the back end, and then we're able to use that as pivot points and as investigative points, right? So if you have a Palo Alto, right, for example, not an endorsement, but if you have a Palo Alto and you're pulling in your logs from that include the web filtering components, you're able to get those URL categories. So you can pull that in, it will store that alongside all the other data in Security Onion, and you're able to use that to add additional context or enrichment during your investigation. If you want to check, what categories of URL an endpoint was going to. One interesting thing about this that people don't always realize is that you don't necessarily have to do this on a Security Onion node. You just have to do it on something with Elastic Agent. I know in a lot of environments you'll have a Unix server that's kind of your catch-all monitoring server, does the log stuff, does a bunch of different things. You can install Elastic Agent on one of those, and have that act as your integration with the rest of your environment. Send your firewall logs to it, have it reach out to AWS, have it pull down your Okta logs, whatever you need. Right? So you don't necessarily need to do this as part of your core security onion grid. As long as the Elastic agent is joined to your manager search, your standalone, it will pull that data in and add it to the proper ingestion pipeline for you. Very cool stuff. A change that we've been working on, and which will probably be completed in the new year, is transitioning PCAP functionality from Stenographer over to Suricata. So we all know that Suricata does IDS. It can also do metadata generation, much the same way Zeek does. But we are looking at transitioning to it for all PCAP. It's the default PCAP engine in eval or standalone deployments now. And we're looking to push it to all distributed grids as well in a future release. One of the big things that was holding us up here was that we needed a separate BPF function in Suricata. A lot of people will use BPFs differently in their IDS solution versus their packet capture solution. And we wanted to make sure that there were separate BPFs available for those two different functions in the engine before we made this the default. That was released in Suricata 8 a couple months ago. So that last roadblock has fallen, and we should be doing this in the near future. One interesting feature about Suricata PCAP is, unlike Stenographer, which is kind of all or nothing, Suricata PCAP can be configured for conditional PCAP. So you can tell it to capture traffic, but only around a triggered alert, or capture traffic, but only traffic that's tagged a certain way, right? So it can be a little more sparing of disk space for you. All right, so I've talked a bit about some of these different features. I have a little video here that walks through some of them. So let me switch over to that, and I will narrate as stuff pops up. I should have added audio so I know when it's playing. There we go. All right, so this is the notifications feature. What I've done here is I've set up, the notifications feature to send high and critical alerts up into Slack. So this is a Slack channel. I'm seeing a bunch of Slack alerts for ET malware, Golang, SandCat plugin activity. The alert text here, again, all coming from notifications, is all customizable. So I've cut this down from sending the full JSON blob to just sending the alert name, the source, and the destination. So in your environment, if you want to do something like send emails for high and critical alerts or send high alerts to Slack, that's very easy to do. If we go into Security Onion, we take a look at the alerts panel, we'll look for that same high severity alert there. We notice we've also got some other EXEs that might be related. We'll dig into those in a minute. So let's group by source and destination IP, and it looks like, this being a small test environment that I made this with, all of these alerts are coming from the same sources and destinations. If we click on the eye, you see the little green pin icon comes up. Our detail panel pops up on the right, and that's got our plain English description of the SandCat rule that fired. This rule detects HTTP post requests indicative of SandCat plugin activity. So this is probably some sort of beaconing activity, right? We can tune the rule directly here. We can turn it on and off. We can do some basic tuning. Or we can pivot into detections. So this is the full detections interface. Detection source here shows us the Suricata rule that is fired. Playbooks shows us the guided analysis playbooks that are related to this rule. So here we see there's a specific rule for this malware. There's also an ET malware playbook rule. If we look at the larger drill down of all the alerts, we see that it's the same source IP on the same source port reaching out to the same destination IP on the same destination port. So this definitely seems like it is probably beaconing traffic, right? So this is worth investigating. We're going to open up a new case. We'll escalate one of our alerts into the case, and here we go. We have a case named ET malware, Golang, SandCat plugin activity. Go back to alerts, drill down, and then we'll open up one of these alerts, and when we scroll down a little bit, we see there's two tabs here. There's an alert options or alert details on the left, and then the guided analysis on the right. Here we've got our network data decoded, and it's showing multiple base64 beacons going out to this beacon URI. So let's scroll back up and see what guided analysis has to say about this. So this is the guided analysis screen. You see it's broken up into individual questions about the investigation. So at the top here, what is the complete HTTP post request to the beacon endpoint? There's two sections. One is a hunt query, and that is the live log data that is being pulled back by the guided analysis tool. And then instant insight, which is the first 5 results for that analysis, right, for that query. If you as an analyst need to do the full results, you need to see everything that comes back from that hunt query, you can do that by just clicking on the crosshairs icon here. Scrolling down, we see more information about the analysis, more stuff that we might want to look at, what process initiated the connection, what DNS queries preceded the connection, et cetera, et cetera. You see here, this is tying together the endpoint logs that we're ingesting from this mbishop laptop with the network analysis. So the Suricata alert is what kicked this off, but the guided analysis is able to blend together the endpoint logs, the process logs, with the network logs to give us a holistic view of what's happening in the environment. So we keep scrolling down, we've got more of these investigative pieces, more of these investigative prompts. You know, these are very good for making sure, especially if you've got junior analysts in your environment, that they're not missing anything, that they're going through and dotting all their I's and crossing all their T's. Now, if we want more information about this particular event, we can click on the rule, and then we'll go to Actions and Correlate. And what this will do is it'll give us all the information that Security Onion has gathered about this network flow, this endpoint, this particular traffic that we're looking at. We've got Suricata information, we've got Zeek information. Right now we're zeroing in on the endpoint logs. So we come down here, and like I said earlier, we can actually see that there's a process named updater.exe. That's what generated the traffic. So let's go ahead and add that to our case as well. And if we look at these process investigation shortcuts here, we look at the process info, we see that updater.exe has a parent process of cat.exe. Cat.exe is running from c/users/mbishop/downloads. So it looks like Marty may have downloaded something bad. We'll go ahead and escalate that into our case so that we've got it for future reference. And then if we hunt on cat.exe, we'll get all of the information about that particular process, right? Including, on the left there, a process tree of its ancestry. So explorer.exe, launched cat.exe, launched updater.exe. Here are all the DLLs that it called in. Here are all the registry keys that it altered. Here are all the network connections that it made. Now, if we zoom in on the file events in particular, we scroll down, we can see at the bottom there, msedge.exe renaming something named cat.exe. So fundamentally what happened here is mbishop downloaded cat.exe using msedge, launched it using Explorer, that's what pulled down Updater, and that's what generated that bad traffic. So we'll escalate all that other stuff up into cases. We'll take a look in here and we'll see we've got all of our evidence squirreled away in events. All of the stuff that we've escalated is sitting there, ready to be retrieved. And one last thing, if we want to share this, then we can use that new reporting functionality that I mentioned earlier, right? Everything in cases has a pre-built report for it. We go over into our reporting tab, we download it, and there's all the information in our case report. All of the events are in there, any comments that we added will be in there, right? So this whole workflow will be captured, and you're able to export it as a PDF to send to your friends in legal or at the help desk or whoever needs to look at this stuff in order to do the remediation and cleanup. All right? So that was some of the new features we've added in the last 2 years. If you look at the release notes, you'll see there's a lot more, but I wanted to show off some of the high points, especially notifications, process investigation, reporting, because that's stuff that people have been asking for, and we think you'll be really excited to play with. If you want some hands-on time, if you want to poke at this stuff yourself, Bryant has an excellent demo set up at the table out in the lobby. He'd be happy to walk you through it. In the meantime, I've got a couple minutes left. I know it's early. Does anyone have any questions? Yes?
The endpoint data that you were showing us, the file, the history, the care process history, is all that being collected by that elastic agent, or used to be syslog perhaps? How's all that getting into?
Okay, so the question was the endpoint data that I was using, how was that collected? That was all coming in from an Elastic Agent installed on the endpoint. That was a regular Windows endpoint, and that was the default configuration. So if you install Elastic Agent in your environment, it's a two-step process. You tell Security Onion to accept connection requests from whatever subnet your endpoints are in, and then you install the pre-built exe on your Windows boxes, and that's it. All of the ingestion and everything is set up. The installer is pre-configured for your environment with all the necessary configuration and certificates and so on. So it's as straightforward as possible. Any other questions? Yeah.
If we have an agent that goes down within our grid, we set up notifications to let us know that that agent is down, like on a search node or a sensor.
If you have an agent that goes down in your grid, you mean like an Elastic Agent on an endpoint? The Elastic Agents in your grid. Yeah, so we do have functionality as part of the Fleet server where if an Elastic Agent doesn't check in, it will be marked as unhealthy or offline, and that is exposed through the API, so you can write an alert for that. Yes?
Is there any features in the Pro license that require anything online, or is all of it self-contained?
Is there anything in the Pro license that requires you to be online? Everything should function in air gap, right? I can't think of anything that's yeah. Yeah, it should be self-contained. A lot of our customers run in an air-gapped environment, so that's really kind of a design priority for us. Any other questions? Yes?
You were talking about the new way of tuning the Suricata rules.
Mm-hmm.
Does that allow you to do kind of bulk updates? So if you have like like the numbers like, oh, like the ICS Suricata rule set, you want to add that to your security onion?
So the
Every single rule, or could you put it all in at once?
Okay, so the question was, this is for adding rules you were asking?
Yes.
Okay. So if you want to bulk add Suricata rules, you can put them in a local GitHub repository or make them available via HTTP, and they'll be pulled in on a scheduled process. If you want to do bulk tuning, you can do bulk enabling and disabling via regex. So for example, a lot of our customers will disable ET info. It's just rules that they don't find useful. So you can tell it any rule that has ET info in the name, go ahead and disable it. You're welcome. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you all very much, and I will see you soon.